One of the ways to get extra leverage on the whole idea that problems happen for me is that if they weren't uncomfortable, it wouldn't get our attention and it wouldn't motivate us to overcome it. So we grow from all that uncomfortable stuff, but the fact it's uncomfortable is actually for our benefit, for our attention and motivational drive. Like, that is a huge deal. The other thing is that you always have a choice. You can always choose the attitude you're going to have for any problem. Because you have a choice, it's not to me. It's to me if you don't have a choice in terms of how to respond. Because you always have free will to judge and choose your mindset and your thoughts and then potentially your actions and responses, then it is for you. Because you're still in control, right? Yep. So those are two aspects, two angles of it, because if I have to debate somebody, if I'm helping somebody and I have to debate their victim mindset, sometimes I throw in a whole ton of angles till they're just like, you're right, there is a lot of stuff here I never thought about, right? So you really have to win that debate to help people make that shift sometimes. Now, we do have.
You don't have a sheet on winning that.
Sorry?
I said you don't have a sheet on winning that debate, do you? Because I have that debate a lot with people too.
oh, okay. So
they're in the victim mindset. It's like you got to have some kind of ninja stuff to get them out of it, because they love that story of like, this is who I am. No, you don't understand. It's happening to me. I can't do anything about it. Like, it sucks. Like, well, maybe.
All right. So how do you get people out of victim mentality?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't we talk about it? All right. We'll shift gears here.
Not to derail our normally scheduled programming.
Do we ever follow our normal schedule? I was like, Patty, be ready. I got this topic we're going to talk about on Monday. Nope. We're going to roll with it. We're going to roll with it because it's relevant to you right now. Okay. So how do I coach people out of victim mentality? Let's go through this. Okay. Let's take a number of questions here. Okay. And just do a victim mentality assessment, because everyone thinks it's black or white and it's not. There's a lot of gray area to this. Okay. So I'm going to take everyone through a little bit of an assessment. And then we will see where everybody is at with it, okay? So I call this one Call of the Warrior. That's the name of this handout, okay? So do you ever beat yourself up when things don't go according to plan? Yes or no? Like, right? So that's question one. Question two, do you ever blame outside circumstances, including a pandemic, right? So question three, do you ever feel other people have caused you to think, act, or believe what you do? I'm this way because of this person. Like, or I'm this way because somebody did this to me in a relationship, or whatever, right? Number four, question four. When people give you feedback, do you ever respond by justifying your mistakes? That's one where people actually do victim mentality, and they don't think of it as victim mentality because nobody thinks of victim mentality as something they do. That's the thing with victim mentality. It's so just, there's so much self-deception wrapped up in it, right? Question five, do you ever feel that some things will never change? Like, do you ever feel hopeless? Right? Which is really like saying, instead of saying, how do we win? It's saying we've already lost.
Right.
How do we win? No matter what's going on the outside, there's always a way to win on the inside. You can always choose a more empowering perspective or reframe, right? So question six, do you ever write off suggestions or advice without giving fair consideration? Fair consideration or effort? Now, some people might be like, yeah, well, of course I do. And I'm like, well, that's that is to assume you've already lost, right? Like that's the essence of victim mentality, is assuming you've already lost. And then number 7 is, do you ever feel angry, pissed off, depressed, or resentful about your circumstances? Yes or no? So those are 7 questions. Okay. Of those 7 questions, like all of them, any of them you said yes for is an example of victim mentality. So the only reason I bring those questions to light is just to have a greater awareness of where it gets us, right? Because it doesn't mean you're like a hopeless, depressed person, but you might be victim mentality when it comes to feedback, or you might be victim mentality in this dimension of life. So what I want to do is just give you like more of a helicopter overview of where this might show up. Okay. So the next thing to consider is, why is it an absolute must to overcome victim mentality? So we'll just have people go around and just share whatever answer you want. So, and just put up your hand if you want to share. If you don't want to share, pass. Okay, Wendy, why is it an absolute must?
I think I believe it's a must to change, because if not, you're like sitting in those current circumstances and you're not able to move forward, or potentially that it's just like a negative piece of it, and you're not like fully looking at the whole situation. Or the third thing is that people could also like their perception of you could be that victim, because that's how you come off, like because you're constantly sitting in the complaining or whatever it is.
Yeah, so other people may think less of you, right? Because you don't have the courage to take responsibility for your life. So in other words, you're actually being cowardly. It's a cowardly way to live. Right? So
I don't know if I would say that fully, because I feel like sometimes like you can, how do I say this? Like sometimes you need to feel like if you are playing the victim or you are going through something, like you can't always just get up and move through it. Like sometimes you got to sit in it, you got to go through it. But I don't think in that instance it's being cowardly to like fully feel and experience.
No, it's not.
But if that instance that maybe happened years prior, or something is still holding you, then maybe that's being cowardly. Is like once you've felt it and been through it, not moving through it.
Yeah. And so you're right. And it's the way others will perceive you, right? So others may not be able to have that kind of compassion to be like, look, everybody is going to have depression come over you. You're going to have mental darkness come over you. And yeah, you're going to try to work your way out of the darkness. But they may not know the difference and be able to discriminate whether you are immediately going to be like, okay, I'm in the dark. That's cool. I'm going to just see what this is all about. And then, when I'm ready, I'm going to move forward. They may judge that you've just decided you love to just sit there and feel sorry or indulge in the mental darkness. So other people with public perception, we can't trust that they're going to be intellectually responsible. They're going to misjudge us all the time on this. But I think that we don't want to bypass the darkness, because there's a lot to learn from that experience and being in it as well, right? So victim mentality is to just make the decision that you just aren't going to move through it and you're not going to try. That's more what victim mentality is, I guess. So you kind of said it in a way. It's to relegate yourself. All is over. It's lost. Like it's just no ambition to make progress here. So anyone else have any thoughts on why is it? Okay, Charmaine.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to feel that, but once you lock in your head that this is the way things are, your brain stops working to try and find ways through. The sooner you can accept the circumstances and just recognize it for what it is and look for a way forward, that's when your brain really starts kicking into gear to see what's possible. And I think so many times we don't realize how much our brain follows along with whatever we're telling it.
Yes, amazing answer. Like you're setting up your subconscious to just find stuff to support that. Absolutely. Anyone else have anything to throw out there? Steve?
I would just say that, victims can't thrive. I mean, you can, it's like light and dark, right? They can't occupy the same space. So, and I think maybe what Wendy was kind of talking about is, yeah, we all get punched in the face, right? Rocky Balboa got punched in the face a lot, but we all get down, and we do have to process, and we do have to get through, and some things hit us harder than others, and we have to process through it. But we all know people that live the victimhood mentality. They love to live there. Nothing is their fault. Nothing can be changed. And you cannot thrive like that. If you are a victim, if you choose to be in, just so we're all clear, I'm not talking physical violence or sexual assault, that kind of thing. But if, nothing ever goes my way, or I never got promoted, or I don't get this, or I don't get the best job, or I don't have the cutest boyfriend in high school, or whatever, those types of things, that victim mentality, you never get to thrive in life. You never get what life has to offer you. Potential is squandered when you're a victim. And most of us, even doing the best that we can and striving to just, to keep going farther and harder and longer and those kinds of things, we still won't all, reach our potential, because we have so much potential there untapped. But a victim will never reach their potential. They won't even come close, and they'll never thrive. And, when you take your last breath, I think a lot of those people, that's the kind of the deathbed, whatever, right? Where the deathbed regrets of, I should have tried harder, I should have whatever. So I think what, just Tony Robbins has kind of taught me through that is, you just keep moving, man. Process it, take your time, process, and get up and start punching again, and go make crap happen. Grab the life that you think you deserve.
Love it. Love it. That was, you just nailed that one, man. And I think you said it, but I'm going to say the quote that I think was hidden behind everything you said. I think there was a quote there, and here's what it is. Quote Steve Smith: "Victim mentality is the funeral of your highest potential."
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good quote, Steve.
I love it.
Steve nailed that one, because he was talking about death and potential and this and that. I'm like, I hear you. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Do you guys think that people play the victim for so long because it's like quote unquote easy, and you don't have to like move through the potential and the growth and the learning and personal development and things like that?
Also
sometimes in some instances.
Yeah, it's also a way to get attention too.
Right, absolutely.
There's hidden benefits to it, but also I would encourage everyone, probably the healthiest way to look at others who are in this is to look at them with compassion, like almost look at them like spiritual children. So the same way you'd have compassion for a child that's trying to figure it out, with their current stage of developmental consciousness, you're going to be able to help them better if you look at them as spiritual children. Like, it's just like, okay, this is like this is like toy blocks and this is mud pies, but we can work our way up to like models, and we can work our way up to like, sports and other things like it. So I think, yeah, to some degree, some people might milk it for the hidden benefits, but I also feel like we can have compassion for them, that when they have greater wisdom, they will do better, right? They only do it because they're doing the best they can with what they know. And in that way, I have compassion for them because they're making their own misery, but I've made my own misery before too. And people gave me the space to experience that and to let suffering be my teacher. So I think suffering is a great teacher, and I allow that for other people. But I just let them know that I unconditionally accept them no matter what. I'll say them straight up. You're playing victim mentality. Look, I'm going to love you and accept you no matter what. But and if you want help out of this thing, I'll help you out. But otherwise, that's cool. You can play victim mentality the rest of your life. I will still accept you. I don't care, right? So I think that you bring up a great point. What is the best attitude we can have towards those with it, right?
But
Patty,
you
What
will
would love
just
do
call
now?
someone out, you know? Like you can just call someone out like that. I mean, I guess.
here's what I do. You always want to get permission
Kind of
first.
catches them off guard a little.
Yeah. I say this. I say, hey, is it cool with you if I just speak the unspoken and just tell you how it is? Or do you want me to pretend like everything's gravy? Like, like in your best interest, do you trust me? Like, otherwise, no, I won't tell you how it is, right? Like, I'll usually, like, if I sense that they don't completely trust for me to give them that message, then I always get their consent first before I deliver tough love. Right? Because if you deliver tough love without getting consent first, then it's actually perceived as criticism, because unasked for advice is criticism. And people take it as another condition in which they're not good enough. They're like, great, you're telling me this because I'm not good enough. So you don't want to beat up their self-worth. If you can, it takes some finessing. No pressure, Wendy, no pressure on getting really tactful on having those conversations. It took me so many years, like, to figure out how to finesse the conversation. That, like, when I have these conversations,
How'd you phrase that question?
Yeah, I would just say to them, like, hey, are you cool with me just, like, speaking the unspoken and telling you how it is, like, just in the interest, just in your own best interest, like, even if it's not the most comfortable stuff to hear? Or do you want me to just, like, pretend like everything's cool, like everyone else is around you, like? So for me, that's generally how I word it. But it's, whenever I've got consent from somebody, it's never gone bad. Like, they've never resented me. They'll be like, no, I asked for that. I just didn't realize how obvious it was to everybody. Right? Like, or this or that. And a lot of times, like, the majority of people I've coached on this are, like, leaders in society. Like, most of these people are running businesses and are at because of the medical clinic I've worked at most of my life, most of them, nobody puts them in their place in life, because they're telling everybody what to do. But I'm actually saying, look, this is all an act. And if you want the truth, I'll give you the truth now. But if you want to go along with this drama you've created around you in your life, then that's fine too. I can play with this drama, but just know it's an act. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on here that's, So
you see the truth then, though, even if you don't speak it, they know you see the truth.
Yeah, and usually, like, if I'm having that conversation with somebody, I feel like we've reached that level of trust. I'm not just going to walk up to a stranger who's, like, complaining in like a convenience store and just say, hey, guess what? All the problems in your life are your own doing. Have a nice life, like, and walk out, right? So, there's a certain level of tact to that. Patty, did you have something you wanted to add?
I did. Just coming from a place of raw vulnerability and transparency, I yesterday had an hour conversation with a really good friend of mine about the fact that I used my husband's death, when actually we were divorced for, several months before he died, as an excuse. And I pull this out because it puts me in a place of victim. I don't have to explain all the mess that went behind how it went down. And it protects me from saying, oh, that's the reason why she whatever did this, didn't do this, or whatever, or even my perception of how they would perceive me as not coming up to the plate to hit at least a base run. So
like a
that's
bot, Patty, like a bot.
So that place of, if I can posture myself there as a victim, it gives me the excuse for why I'm not playing full out and I'm not taking responsibility. And so this happened yesterday, and I'm just now looking through, the notes that came out of that, going, this is an area where I pull the victim card that I've got to stop doing. Now, I don't know how many people around me see it, but I know that I pull it when I'm in a new situation and I feel that I don't have a position of control in whatever that situation is.
You want to know something cool?
Tell me.
That is totally cool. You know why? Because it serves you in that circumstance,
Yeah.
right? You're saying, okay, I've used it strategically when something's new and I don't know how to handle it. Great, that's fine. You can use that, but you're also a work in progress and you're learning and growing all the time. So you haven't really given up. You're using that as a placeholder. It's like, till I figure this one out, I'm just gonna do this. All right,
That's it.
good. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's serving you.
But it's no longer serving me because now it's become so apparent to me that I'm like, I can't, I'm lying to myself, and I'm not playing full out. And what's like Steve said, I'm just creating my own funeral because I'm just standing behind that every time I want to either not explain what happened or whatever. I'm divorced. Nothing else really matters besides that. But I had to get past the fact that this lie that I was creating in my head, that I wasn't good enough to ride it out while he was stage 4 cancer, that he divorced me before he died. And so now once I'm able to accept that I'm good, regardless of what happened, I showed up my best that entire time. It really doesn't matter how things went south.
Yeah.
So once I'm able to own that, the freedom that came from that, and there's no longer a victim mentality behind it, and I'm not posturing behind it in order to create an excuse. Thank you
Patty
for allowing me to
Baker
share.
at her finest. And you know what? I always I have such tremendous respect for that share, because you led with such courageous humility. Like, that was you 10 out of 10 courage, right? Which is the opposite of victim, right? Like, you just nailed, and wisdom. Like, you can do what you can do whatever you need to do when you need to do it. You can do 10 out of 10 warrior. You just did it. There you go. And you're more aware now. And self-awareness is the foundation for self-regulation. So that's something to keep in mind.
I found too, I mean, I know that you have an interest in coaching, and I feel like people that are effective coaches have things like that in their own life experience that they can illustrate to other people principles with. I mean, Tony and everybody does it all the time. Like, you can teach something, but if you can put it in a story form, people seem to retain it or connect to it much better.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, Patty, I would say this: a lot of people are going to look at Patty like that she's wise and she's positive, and her state of being is unattainable. I'm sure a lot of people may look at that and think of her like that. But when she does share moments of vulnerability, it actually can be inspiring for other people to think, Patty Baker has had that? Then there's hope for me, right? Like, it's a way to like offer your ego up to be able to pull other people up with you, right? So that's why I really have tremendous respect for that approach.
Well, it's a universal theme. I mean, I'm sure pretty much everybody hides behind stuff like that in different ways. So I'm sure it'll be really helpful to people to show how you can move out of that, and to even just to self-realize it is huge.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And Patty, I would just like make sure that you take some time to honor yourself for coming through to this, whether it was like came up with a conversation with your friend or just on your own, like noticing that behavior or noticing how that used to happen and now moving through it is such a beautiful thing. And it's like, you can still use it in some sense, like it is something that happened to you. So you can still, put it where you need to put it, but just being able to verbalize it and actually speak on it, I think is so beautiful. So I would just invite you to like celebrate that,
Awesome. One of the things I want to add too, anyone raise your hand here if you've ever experienced injustices and hardships in your life? Okay, yes. This is the important thing to remember with victim mentality. Anybody can play that script to some degree with their own injustices and hardships. But you can play the script of victim or hero in your life, right? But it's really hard to do both. You can blame or transform, but you can't do both. One of the things that I'll say to people is one of the reasons why it's a must is because you've doomed your future. Like if you play the victim mentality script, you've doomed your future. You know, because but if you take control, a brighter future is possible. Now, here's something I'll say to men, okay? If you're having this discussion with men, I use these words. It's an impotent way to live.
Nice.
Okay? Because that just gets you. And here's
clever.
why. Here's
Sorry.
why. You're giving power to the thing you claim is victimizing you. Think about that. You're giving power to the thing you claim is victimizing you. And that is a huge point. So I think we all crushed it on, first of all, high fives all the way around the room. I think we all crushed it on why it's important to get over this thing. And that's a big thing. If you don't have the leverage first, then you can have the best system or process, but you need the leverage to have the motivational drive necessary to make the distance on what comes next. So I'll tell people, I'll say straight up, you know, with this victim mentality, with this.
We lost you for a second.
Okay, cool. Did I miss something? I missed something.
Yeah, you froze for a couple of like 30 seconds, so you're back.
Okay. Anyway, whatever I said in those 30 seconds is gone forever. I'm sorry, you guys.
It was super profound.
Yeah. Never before said profound wisdom, gone forever. I forgot everything. So just assume. Okay. So I'll say to people, you know, you can keep the victim mentality script as long as you want, that script. And you can defend it, and you can try to justify it, and you can play up those stories and really create a story around this label that you're wearing. As long as you want, you can. And personally, I'll accept you the whole time. Doesn't matter. We've all done it, right? But whenever you want to really get to the next level in your life, then you can change the story. And that'll bring you closer to what you actually wanted all along. But you have to be willing to do the work, to let go of this mentality and choose something more empowering. Right? So sometimes people are just in such a fearful state that they're not ready for that. Okay? So some people would be like they just have too much fear of the change and fear of the unknown. So if somebody is not ready, if I have that conversation like, you're at a fork in the road, what are you going to do? If I have that conversation and they're not ready, then I do work to build up their belief in themselves. Tell me about times you've gone from struggle to success. Tell me about times you've defied the odds in your life. When things were, you know, and I just have a conversation about that, then I revisit this. Okay, so you got to know that somebody's belief, their self-efficacy has to be high enough at a certain level before they'd be willing to get past this marker here, right? Everybody, good news. Chris is joining us. So I would say to them,
Woohoo!
Chris, welcome.
Brothers, how are you?
I'm good if you're good, my friend.
I am outstanding.
Awesome. Glad you could join us. We're talking about victim mentality today.
Really?
And how to instantly cure it.
Yeah.
I tend to find victim mentality tends to come from your own mindset. And sometimes that's very heavily influenced by your exercise and your nutrition more than people realize.
Yeah, your physiology can become your psychology. You're right.
Well, it also affects how your brain functions because sugar can actually pass through the membrane that covers your brain.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Really good perspective on it is that And that can influence the kind of state we're in. And we can feel in a disempowered state if we're malnourished and we have unhealthy habits. And that disempowered physical state can lead to a disempowered psychological state.
Yes.
That's why we have lie detectors. Lie detectors measure the changes in mind and body. The changes in the mind show up in the body, right? That's why we have a placebo effect. Excellent. So we're going to move forward then with this part. So here's what I would say to somebody after getting leverage on why it's important to overcome victim mentality. I'd say, do you have any resistance to overcoming this at this moment in time? Right? So if I'm talking to, like, somebody might say, hey, look, this is a really new situation and I don't know how to handle it. So I feel like I need to do this to just give myself some space until I figure a better approach. Fine, by all means, fine. Right, but I want to get that on the radar first. Do you have any resistance to overcoming victim mentality at this moment in time? Because if so, that's cool. We can come back to it. And we can put focus, we can focus on giving you strength where you need it. Now, the next question I would do is, I would get clear on values. I would get clear on values. I would say, you know, what do you value? What is the return on investment of your values? You know, people might say they value this or that, but their actions show their true values. You know, so victim mentality might be a tool to connect with others, but is it the best tool? Can it run you ragged? You know, can it make things uncomfortable for those around you? You know, are people giving you attention out of obligation because it's heartless not to give someone focus and attention when they're sharing their victim stuff, right? Like, it feels like loving attention, but deep down, might they actually kind of resent the position they're in? Some people maybe, yeah, right? So I'd say, you know, is this the person you want to be? Somebody who does all this stuff. One of the things I do is get clear on values, like, basically, here's victim mentality. Here's the injustices it creates on the people around you. Is that the person you want to be? Very few people will say, yes, I want to create injustices on other people around me. So I get them on that angle, right? But you can say, like, you know, it's not exactly the most constructive way to create love and connection, right? There's a better way. There's a better way to feel secure, right? There's a better way to feel important rather than being the person in the room with the biggest problem, right? You could just actually take a bigger interest in people and feel more important. So there's a better way for whatever you're valuing. You'll find usually there's a better way. Until you know a better way, victim mentality is fine, but you can upgrade whenever you want. So I'll just say to people, is this the person you want to be? You know, and usually people are like, no. You know, like, let me think. No, right? So that's what we want to do first, is show how it's in conflict to their to-be list. How do you want people to remember you? For the impact you have on people, how can you help everybody if you're indulging in this? You know? So I usually try to tie it back to those things. Anybody else have anything they want to share on this point?
Just that these are all really ninja moves, because it's like, you're like a third party that just like, hey, there's this bad stuff. Like, you don't want to have that. You don't want to stick to that bad stuff, do you? Because usually it's like the one-on-one and they put up the wall, right? It's like, and they take it, as you were saying, like the judgment, where you really just want to help. But the way you frame this all is really super helpful, because it takes you out of it. It's like, hey, you can work on this or not. You know, pain's a great teacher. Like, maybe you need to stew in it longer. But,
Yeah,
you know, maybe there's another thing too.
I love that idea because it doesn't put you in the problem in any way. And it's just being like loving, caring, compassion, and potentially they could have no idea they're even playing the victim or coming from this approach. Maybe they've been doing it for so long, it's just normal to them, or they just don't have that perspective. So I think this way of like hey, can I just like point out what I'm seeing? First you're asking, so it's not like criticism like you mentioned earlier, and then if they allow you to do so, you get to kind of open them up to it. Do you think as well, like if someone's having a hard time seeing the whole picture of like them playing the victim, or a hard time kind of grasping it, that you can like share a story from like an experience, like on how you used to play the victim, and then like kind of a comparing type thing?
Yeah, it's important that people don't feel judged or conditionally accepted. So I always say, hey, what did you do? What was the outcome? Then I say, that's nothing. You should hear what I did, right? And I try to one up them if I can. You offer your ego up to help them better. Like, I'll just be like, just really raw. Okay, I remember one time, like, I went to my room and I told myself this and this, and then I sat there miserable and nobody knew I was suffering, and that's how it worked out for me. Like, it's so embarrassing, right? So I'd say that try to one up them on whatever they've done. Try to one up them. And then they're going to be like, yeah, but I see where you're at now. How did you go from A to B? So it's much more compelling to be able to say, I went from A to B, rather than almost coming at it like from a level of superiority, being like, oh, you're dealing with this victim thing, you know, us higher life forms never indulge in that way of living, you know, like. So I think that's key, is to when you do it in a gentle way, when you're having this conversation, just try to let them know, like, hey, look, I've done this, and when I did this, I found that when I acted like this, it led to this. It just made things worse. Or I started to realize the effect it had on other people. Like, there's a lot of people who care about me, and when I'm not happy, they're not happy, so I make them suffer with me. Like, I would just bring in all these other different angles, and I'm not telling them that that's what they're doing, but then they start to think, oh, maybe I do that too, right? But the way I do it is by talking about myself.
But then they also realize that maybe like whatever they're playing the victim for, I don't mean to make this sound rude, but like, isn't that special? Like, they can move through it. That makes sense. Like, sometimes people play the victim, and I'm speaking from experience. Like, I was in a wheelchair. I had my brain surgeries. I had all my seizures. I used to play the victim for sure to get attention, because I didn't see a lot of people because I was always on bed rest or whatever it was. Or I would use it as I'm tired or I don't feel good not to show up to things. And so it's kind of like, by calling someone out on it, it's kind of like not that special. Like, not to be rude, but like, you can move through it as well.
So if you want to know a sneaky way to get that perspective in, and not to undermine anyone's difficulties, because it's all relative. To some of us, what's victimizing them would be a big deal to them in their reality, and maybe not to us, right? So it's all relative. But I say this, I say, you know, I started to do this victim mentality, and then I started to remind myself, well, first of all, let me do this. Don't think about monkeys. Don't think about like Brazilian monkeys and the ones with the blue faces and the ones with the rainbow bums. Don't think about them swinging from their vines. Don't think about monkeys. How many people here thought about a monkey? I did too. Yeah, of course. So what I do is, you can't think in negative like that. So what I do is I say this. I say, I used to act like that. And then I reminded myself that worse things have happened to better people. Now, I'm saying that in the context to a reminder I give myself, but what happens, just like the monkey thing, that line, worse things have happened to better people, it got in there. I didn't say it to them because I look insensitive, but I got it into their psyche, right? So if I want to say something that might seem a little bit less sensitive, I say it to myself, and then they internalize it. But they don't take offense to it, because I'm saying it to myself, and they'd be like, oh, worse things have happened to better people. And the next thing they know, something happens to them and they're like, worse things have happened to better people. Where'd that come from? How'd that get stuck in my mind? It's like when you get a crappy song stuck in your head, right?
Ninja.
So that's ka-cha, ka-cha. There you go. So that's something you can pull out as a move, right? So all right, now
One thing on that real quick. I think sometimes when people are stuck in a victim mentality, they are so internalized and so focused on the things that are happening to them, they don't realize the effect they have on other people. They're completely
yes,
oblivious to it.
yes, yeah, you're right, and it's because when we're living in fear, we become more selfish. It's self-preservation mode. So our blinders to the effects on others, we get our blinders on. Now here's the next step, getting clear on the pattern. So we want to go into, the thing is this, victim mentality is not something that comes over you. It is something you create moment by moment. All right? So it's something you create moment by moment. You re-energize it. You re-energize this pattern. So you want to go into observer mode and try to see what the ingredients are that create this recipe. So here's some different ways of thinking about that. You know, there might be different ways that people physically get into this. So it might be like, okay, go into your victim mentality. Immediately you go from this to a scowl, right? I don't know how people do it, right? It could be like they just go into, let me tell you about my life. Or they're good, like they might physically posture it. But most importantly, I like to go after the actual phrases used. Okay? The phrases used. Phrases that begin with I can't, I have to, I'm no good, I've never been able to, this is just the way I am, that will never work, I don't remember doing that blank, 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 there is no way. These are the different things that people will use. So I always want to know, what are your ingredients? Like, you chefed up a victim recipe? What ingredients did you use? Right? So I would say that, because I'd be like, let's get clear on the pattern. But I would also say this, victim mentality is a sensitive thing. So I'd say, like, look, if you've been really good at victim mentality, you got potential, kid, because it's just a recipe. And in the same way that you owned that recipe and you pledged allegiance to it, we could do hero recipe. We can figure out the ingredients. We can figure out warrior recipe. And you can chef some of that into your life, you know? So I let them know, like, you've got all it takes. You can pledge allegiance to a pattern. We're good. That is a prerequisite for grand success. So every now and then, you got to just keep hitting them up with that, a little bit more self-efficacy, because if somebody's in victim mentality, usually they're not at their strongest, right? It's a habit and a pattern people will go into when they're not feeling strong. So when we're going through it, you gotta just keep them fueled up a little bit. So at this point, I might say something like that. So does anyone have any thoughts or ideas on sharing, like, the ingredients behind victim mentality? Anything you've noticed or observed, or anything you want to add? All right, perfect. Just raise your hand if you do want to say anything. Now, the next thing I say is this. I'm going to challenge you to be completely honest with yourself. Do you know why you do the victim mentality recipe? What are the hidden benefits? Right? Now, I might tease it out. I'd say, do you do this because in some twisted way you like the attention? Right? You like that people notice you? Do you do that? Do you do it because it feels like it takes pressure off you? Like, what are some of the different ways, like, why do you use extreme or absolute language? Why do you embellish the story? You know, I try to go into that with them so they can get clear on it. And the reason I want them to get clear on the hidden benefits is so we can come up with more empowering ways to realize those benefits. We want substitution, not deprivation. Because if you try to take the victim mentality away and you don't substitute it with something better, then you just created a threat to the system. So, and this is, Wendy, we talked about holistic nutrition. I do the same thing in nutrition. You can't take away, if I'm taking away your candy, I throw in berries. If I'm taking away your chocolate pudding, I give you chocolate protein shakes. You know, I do the old switcheroo on whatever it is, we just switch it. If we're taking out bread, we might go with gluten-free bread. You know, it's like, or not, whatever. Maybe they're both junk. But you know what I'm saying is we want to think about how might we substitute it, okay? What are better ways to achieve those benefits? So why don't we go with an example here, okay? Let's say somebody's in a situation that's completely new and it's intimidating. And normally they'll use the victim mentality as a way to kind of create some comfort and security. But then they realize, like, that's not really me at my best when I do that. It's not great. It's a bit of a drain on my spirit in some ways. I know it's not me being my authentic self. I'm out of this one. What do you guys think might be a more beneficial strategy to get that feeling of security in a new situation? What might be a better way?
To understand things that they like or that they love about themselves or in this world, and be able to celebrate like them doing that or successes that they have, to give them a sense of security instead of like harping on everything. It could be, what do you love? Even if it's as simple as like soccer, TV, or whatever it is, kind of like flipping it the other direction.
Okay, so this is a really profound point, because victim mentality is very self-focused. But if you think of others and you shift to a position of love, you'll often find your courage, right? Once you shift to like the position of love, then you think, okay, who do I need to be in this moment for other people? Then you think, okay, then people...
Is that I see the opposite for me. Like for me, it would be, oh, I can't do this because I got to take care of my family, and no one else could take care of the family but me. But the truth would be, like, I can't inconvenience other people for my own gain. Like, it's okay if the house is not clean or other people take care of things. I don't have to just do it all. I can delegate it and inconvenience other people in order to make things happen. So I could see it in both ways too.
Yeah. And that is a good point, because you'll find that no matter what you do, you will always have people that will support you in life. Everybody has a team. It's like being on a game show. You can call a lifeline. Be like, I can call a lifeline. I'm going to call up somebody that I trust and respect who might be able to help me see the situation differently. After having a conversation with them, I feel secure, right? Anyone could do that, right? You could call anyone in this group. I'm sure would be happy to talk to you. So yeah, use that too. You can think of others, but then you could also think of teammates that can help pick you up when you need some help, right? Great strategy. So those are alternate strategies. And what I would do with somebody is this: let's just come up with other ways to meet those needs, right? So you don't have to resort to this. You're better than that. We know you're better than that. If you want to get familiar with it, keep doing the victim mentality thing. That's fine, because you'll get really good at it. So then later on, you'll have more relatability to people. You'll pick up more insights. But if you're ready to move on now, if it served you, but it's expired, here's some other ways that might be better fuel, right? So great responses in the chat I'm seeing too about hidden benefits of victim mentality, taking pressure off people, shifting responsibility. It does manipulate people to some degree, gives the victim sympathy. And sympathy is a way of getting love and connection. But I find whatever need it is, I think I've heard this multiple places. I think Tony said this too. Whatever need you're trying to get for yourself, give it to somebody else, and as you give, you shall receive. If you want security for you, try to create security for somebody else in a conversation. Be like, hey, don't worry about the future and COVID. Here's why the future looks bright. Here's why, we're taking care of and stuff. Whatever it is, whatever that need is, if it's love and connection, give it first. Make somebody feel loved and appreciated, and it's going to boomerang back to you. So the idea is to give whatever need it is that you're craving and needing in that moment, and you'll find that the best way to get it is just to give it. So as a default, if you don't know the answer, you're like, I'm stuck. How do we get this need? Give it. Give it, and you'll receive it. So any other things anyone wants to share on alternative ideas?
I thought of something. So if someone is like stuck in playing the victim and they're not ready to move forward through that, I would invite that individual, whenever the next time arises, to just be curious about it rather than judgmental or act on it. Because maybe now that this conversation has been had, they're going to be like, oh shit, I'm playing the victim, or they'll feel about it. Where instead, if they're kind of just curious about it in their head, like, why is this happening? What's the pattern? Like, what's happening in my environment around me? If they start to do that, anytime it comes up, then they'll start to notice the pattern and they'll be able to move through it and this is just what I think I would do. Like if I was coaching someone on this, rather than telling them like, just sit in it, I would be like, oh, well, I invite you to be curious about it when it arises.
Yes, I love it. Let me tell you the 5-step process I give people. So here's what it is. I say, okay, here would be the way that you can best move forward with this, no matter what you want to do. Step 1 is like to just notice it or interrupt it. Like the minute you start making that recipe, just pay attention. Don't accept every lousy thought that comes to your mind. Just really stop it in its tracks. Kill the monster while it's little. Catch the pattern as it's starting. That's step 1. Because most people are on autopilot, cruise control. They just, oh, by the way, I'm Brendan, and oh, let me tell you about how I've had the worst luck in the world in my life, right? They just go into this party story or whatever, right? So it's just like, stop that. Okay? Step 2, get questioning it. Am I generalizing? Okay? Is this out of context? Am I generalizing? Victim mentality thrives off generalization. Am I exaggerating? Is this out of proportion? Am I exaggerating? Is it really true? Is it really true? According to whom? How do we know that? So, am I generalizing? Am I exaggerating? Is it really true? Most victim mentality patterns can't withstand that level of intellectual scrutiny. You're like, actually, this is a lie. Oh my gosh, this actually isn't true. I believed it. I actually deceived myself into thinking this stuff, right? So that's when you just lift the veil on it, right? So step 1, notice or interrupt. Step 2, get questioning it. Then you also want to think about, redirecting it to something more helpful, right? Redirecting it to something more helpful. So I would say, this. What's the empowering truth? What's the empowering truth? I'm very specific on using that wording because that wording almost sets the subconscious up. So when I redirect it to something more something more helpful, what's the empowering truth? You're basically putting their subconscious mind in the driver's seat. You're saying empowering and you're saying truth, and the subconscious mind is going to try to find answers around that. then also I might say, you know, how is this challenging me to grow? How is this challenging me to grow? Right? That's also a helpful way of looking at it. You know, another thing you might do is, let's say it's like a business thing and you're coming up with, because victim mentality, as I've coached it, sometimes it has to do with like business brainstorming and stuff like that and teamwork. That's when you're going to see people like really kick into that'll never work and this and that, right? Or we can't go there because of this reason and that reason, or nobody's been able to do this there and blah, 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 right? So we want to be able to shift from we've already lost to how do we win. So a way I do that is how might we? Okay, how might we? So when people are designing and inventing new products, like one of the companies that does this is IDEO. They do design for like Apple and Nike, like they designed the mouse to have the ball by using like deodorant sticks. Anyway, whenever they're trying to come up with a product to solve a solution, to avoid victim mentality, every question starts with how might we? HMW, how might we? So how might we create security and love and connection? How might we learn to get along with these people? How might we be able to overcome this? It's very important because using the word might takes some pressure off. It doesn't say like, how should we? That's a lot of pressure. How might we? Less pressure, you can be more creative, right? We implies and brings an awareness to the fact that everything you do is a team effort in life. How might we makes you think of the others that are there to help you. So that's a very empowering way to look at things, right? How might we? And then you might think, well, what resources do we have? What can we control, right? So, or what can we do in the moment to create the future we want under the how might we section? So I would think about this. Victim mentality focuses on what we don't have. Warrior mentality focuses on what we do have. Victim mentality focuses on what we don't control. Warrior mentality focuses on what we do control, right? So that would be the self-management system. Steve, we love you, brother. Great to have you out here. I'm so glad Jen got to meet you and the knife. Very important on our first call here.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got to grab my contractor, but thank you.
No problem. I'll include a handout and a video link to it later on for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So those are some different empowering ways to look at it. The next thing I would do is this. Step 4, ask others to call you out until lasting change is achieved. You need teamwork on getting over this habit. You need to be like, if you see me doing victim mentality, call me out. Interrupt the pattern for me. If I'm just going into robotic mode, right? Because that's where people can accelerate progress. And then the other thing is like, call others out if they want you to. You know, I call other people out and say, do you want me to call you out on your victim mentality? Sure. And then I'd say, hey, have you noticed how when you do this, it leads to this disempowering thing? Is that the person you want to be? Did I just freeze on everybody again?
Yeah, for about 10 seconds.
Okay. All right. So here's how you call other people out. Okay. If you get permission to call people out that you care about, they're trying to get over their victim mentality, then you just point out the cause and effect. You interrupt them, and buzzer sound, stop, whatever. Hey, have you noticed how when you do this, it leads to this disempowering outcome, right? Is that the person you want to be? How is that working out for you? That's it. Have you noticed how when you do this, it leads to this? Is that the person you want to be? How's that working out for you? Now, I might say that, you know, as a gesture of caring and concern, I know you're better than that, and you know you're better than that too, right? Like I may say that, like just leave it in so they don't feel like I'm like judging them or coming down on them. But I may say something like that, right? So anyways, let's why don't we just kind of leave it there for the victim mentality discussion. Okay.
It's so good and so ninja.
But I would also say this, like there are different things that'll leave people to remember. Like one of the things I'd say is remember, who controls what you believe? You do. Can anyone else make you believe anything? Who can change what you believe? When can you change it? Right now. And when will you change it? You can do it right now. It's these reminder questions are like, yeah, you're right. I do have the driver's seat. I can believe whatever I want. You know, who controls what you do? Nobody else controls what you do. You have absolute control over what you do. Nobody else can really make you do anything. You know, so these are some of the different reminders I'll give people and remind them to live. Remember, here's one I just thought of, but remember to be a cause, not an effect. That's ultimately what you're saying here. When you go from victim to warrior, now you're going to be a cause, not an effect. Because otherwise you're just constantly living, getting triggered, reactionary, everything else. So why don't we do this? Why don't we go around the circle and we'll do some just like key takeaways. Everyone will just share like key takeaways or anything they want to just add as we kind of wrap up the victim mentality discussion. Charmaine, do you want to start off? Key takeaways from tonight's discussion.
I think being aware of the situation and realizing you always have the power to choose, because ultimately it's your choice who you want to be in any moment. And once you recognize that you're making choices and you're not just reacting, you know, you no longer have the excuse, you know, that here are all these triggers, here's all the things that happened to me in the past. None of that matters because you get to own the decision that you make. And once you're aware, you no longer get to say, hey, you know, it's just something that happened to me. So having that awareness, I think, is the key.
Love it. Love it. Celine.
She might be gone.
Celine might be gone. All right. Is Chris there?
Hey guys, welcome back.
Hey, buddy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Loud and clear.
I think you could actually use the victim mentality story as a roadmap to get out of the victim's mentality. It will actually tell you how to escape. If you reverse the story, like I tell myself, I don't have any money, I'm going to be broke when when everything's done, I'll be living in my car. What is the opposite of that? What would be the steps to get there? Talk to a fiduciary. Start setting up a savings account. Call Section 8 and food stamps. Get on the list now. If I just did those 3 or 4 little steps, and that would create some certainty around a successful strategy instead of the oh, woe is me strategy, that will help you start to take steps and get momentum out of that story. That'll help you start getting out of its gravitational pull. That will give you that rocket fuel. By taking little baby steps that the story is actually telling you on the flip side will get you those steps out of it.
Love it. Love it. Baby steps, man. I loved What About Bob? Great comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Joel, key takeaways from tonight.
Man, there's so many, and I just stopped.
This is your topic, man.
I stopped writing notes like partway through, just realizing I'm just gonna have to watch the recording again and figure out how to translate it all and write it all down. It's just super helpful because one of my passions, having a passion for contribution, is to help the homeless, and like victimization is like a huge part of their. I mean, you can't generalize, but I would say there's a huge part of victimization mentality within that. The challenge for me will be that I'm going to try to do a program that I can make like an online university that's free, that they can access from libraries, that they can go through modules and save their progress. The challenge for me is trying to figure out how to do something in a prepackaged format where you're not one-on-one with somebody, but walk them through maybe handouts and tools so they can go through some of these questions. Because it seems like it's more effective when you can kind of build rapport with someone and kind of, like you said, feel them out, see if they're ready for progress, and go around it. But that's my challenge. But yeah, I mean, the whole way that you approach everything it's really, the word ninja keeps coming to mind, but it just frames it so it takes the pressure off. You know, even asking them, like pre-qualifying it, like, are you in a place where you want to change? Like, some people probably might not want to change, and like, what's the point of having that conversation? Yeah, and just the whole way of framing it in a way that you're just kind of the third party, and just, hey, you can choose to improve this, or you can, maybe you're learning, maybe there's more to it. And obviously people already know the answer, and like you said, you're kind of just planting that, the right answer is there if you want it. And I think some people just need that snap into awareness that something else exists to tap into it. So yeah, it's all been really helpful.
Love it. And man, tonight was for you, dude. This was the curveball. You're like, oh man, you got victim mentality? Yeah, all right, let's do it. Like, let me pull something out of my wisdom cabinet. I think I got a victim mentality conversation dialed up for us.
Also a reminder to keep building my wisdom cabinet.
Well, that's the good thing, is that you can always, you can start building it even with the handouts and stuff we've done, can give you a good base, right? But yeah, love it. Love that you got so much out of it, and that you're going to use it for the greater good, for helping the homeless. Like, so that in that way, all of us participating here tonight, it is a gesture of love to those people you'll be helping down the road. Even though we'll never meet them, we're letting them know that we care about them, and we're co-creating this conversation here tonight to benefit them.
All right.
So, Jen, key takeaways from tonight.
I love the reminder, and we just recently talked about this, like the accountability and having people who are who can call you out if there really is a pattern that, we all have blinders, and when you make it known as well and can be upfront, like, yeah, I want you to be able to catch me and to tell me so that I can integrate this better. I think that's pretty powerful, and that's where team and the people surrounding you, like, they're there for you as well, and we want to help each other out. So that's sometimes like the just to have the courage. I want to be there for that person, and that's showing support when you can have that accountability and vulnerableness with someone. So I love that. This is definitely coming at like a great time, as I'm looking to also shift out of victim mentality and also know when to not rescue someone if they don't want to be changed, and really being able to, I still want to give love, and that can be a hard decision moving forward, and how, for the greater good, I may not be in agreement with that route, and can really see the victim mentality in myself as well as another person, and what they're bringing, but it's not up to me to change it, and wanting to be there, and but that person may not want that, so that's hard to accept, but also when to know to leave it. And then there's a big part of me not to leave people behind, like to still show love, like it's, I'm just gonna be with that person.
You want to know a really simple answer for that?
Of course I do. Break it down.
The best way, it is an established fact that the best way to help another person is to change yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That is an established fact. Mm-hmm. It is to lead by example, 100%. Change yourself, and you've done your part in changing the world. It's so easy. Then you just focus on yourself. Done.
That's so profound, Brendan.
That was Yogananda said that one. I'm not taking credit for that one. Change yourself and you've done your part in changing the world was Yogananda. All right.
You really realize that with parenting too. Like I can tell kids things till I'm blue in the face, but if I want them to talk nicely with each other, like I have to talk nice. Like it all starts, you have to change, which is kind of great. Like if you're open to change, because it forces you to be better.
And we can also make that a topic of a future conversation. Can't help those who need it. I've got a whole approach around that and making that mental shift. As much as I can throw some of these concepts at you, it's like if we did a deep dive on it, it would really get internalized. Because I'm totally cool with not helping people ever. Right? Like I'm just totally cool. I'm like, if you don't actually ever get helped, you're gonna actually realize how worthy you are in the fact that I never cared that you never decided to improve. Like now you see how legit I am in my loyalty to you, right? So it's a way of showing you can't show. It's a good way to demonstrate unconditional love and acceptance. Like it can set the foundation for something else that can be beautiful as well. Patty Baker, over to you. Key takeaway.
I'm still processing through my own self-awareness over the last 72 hours of my victimization, and then knowing that I need to reach out to somebody to help walk me through it. And then coming to a place of, Patty, why are you coming to me about this? You come to me with such strength, like you're the one coming to me, but now you're telling me you have this issue. But now that you bring it to my attention, I see how that can be used. So I think just really coming to a place of understanding and compassion that sometimes people, it's a poster for them while they're working out the emotional component of really what's behind it, or the lie that's underneath it that's causing that. So because for as many victim stories, there's an emotion, a mental issue that's coming underneath it, and an emotional component that's with it, that's presenting itself as a victim. So I'm telling you, I had a PhD in mine. So, it was easy to just throw it right out there, and it kept people away from me. So sometimes people do that because you're generalizing and you don't want people in your space about it. So if the elephant's in the room and I can throw it out there, now I've mentioned it and now you really don't want to tap into it. So there's also a security, in it on a whole lot of levels. So I'm still processing through it. Those are some things that have just kind of joggled through my mind. I'm going to hit it again tomorrow because I was taking a day just to kind of process through and then hit it again with my friend. But now I just hit it again tonight. So I'm like, wow, this is going to be great for tomorrow. I'm taking notes over here. So I thank you so much for, it happens for us, right? Like I was prepared for something else tonight and this came up and it's meant, for me. So I'm grateful.
I love it. And you made a really good point that really people indulge in victim mentality for an emotional outcome. It's an emotion they're after. And if you want to deep dive it, you're going to find that emotion was either connection with other humans. They use it as a way to connect. It is to feel important. Because when somebody has a problem, everyone wants to jump in and help them, right? Or it is to somehow create that sense of safety and security. Those are the big three. Like those are the three I'm auditing people on. If they're like, I don't know why I do it. I'm like, okay, is it possible it's this, this, and this? And I'll feed it up to them and see if they go for the bait. And usually you're going to find it's all three or a combination of all three. That's what they really want. That's what they really want at the end of the day. And who can fault them for that? We're all just learning and growing here. We all came from the land of oblivion. Like no one remembers where we were before we started in these like flesh body human vehicle suits. And we took on these fake names that our parents started as rumors. And we don't really know before all this stuff happened. So we should stop taking it so serious as we make our lives an experiment with what works and what doesn't work to get to what we really want, which is real long-term happiness. So anyway, let's do this. Let's do count of three. We're going to do friends forever, enemies for never. Big group hug and we're out. We catch up next week. I'll send everybody a handout in the video. Does everyone know what we're saying?
Wait, can we add Jen to the group on the Facebook group page?
Yes,
Okay.
Jen,
Chat.
Or the Facebook chat or whatever.
into the chat.
Messenger.
How do we add Jen?
Well, you can because you're a friend. I just sent her a friend request and I think I can add her that way. But I was just looking. I just want to make sure Jen's in the loop over there.
Okay, Jen, we're gonna get you into the group. Are you in? You're
She's in.
stuck with us.
Awesome.
Patty already said you were in.
I think because you made the group, Brendan, I think you're the one to add. Because no, I can add
He
too.
would
So
be the
whatever.
admin.
Mhm.
How might we add Jen to the group? How might we? It's one of the victim mentality things. It's
Yeah,
like,
how might we
no
add Jen
pressure.
to the group?
well, there's a whole bunch of ways. We can just think about it. What can we control here? Who controls what, right? Like, what can we do? And we'll figure it out. We can just Google it. I'm sure
Let's
we'll
just make
figure
sure
it out.
Jen gets in the group. I'm in. Okay.
Just Google anything. There's no need for victim mentality in today's day and age. We have Google. Just Google whatever it is you need to solve. All right. On that note, friends forever, enemies for never. Fist bump, group hug, we're out. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Friends forever.
Friends
Forever,
forever.
enemies forever.
Group hug.
Group hug, and we're out.
Have a great week.